Hello, Federal viewers. We have with us today Dinesh Arjun. He's the CEO and founder of electric vehicle startup Raptee. And the latest in the EV market has been on Tesla's opening experience center. So, can we do a deep dive into the world of EV? I first wanted to ask you, Tesla has been reportedly importing these supercharger units alongside cars. So, how aggressively is Tesla building its fast charging network in India?
Sure. I mean, obviously, I can't speak for them, but what I do understand is that these vehicles are going to be imported with the CCS charging standard. So they're going to be widely compatible with the existing public charging standard that's already available in India. That said, I think the superchargers have always been a good ammunition for Tesla to kind of show their tech and their charging speed. So I think at least as a POC, I think they'll have quite a few chargers. But given they are going the CBU route and they're importing vehicles, I really doubt they'll be extensively setting up superchargers across.
Right. And can you tell us, like, what would be the difference between a mobile tent style charging setup versus permanent stations, and what do you think is more feasible?
Sure. No, I think different geographies require different types of chargers, and I think today in India, what we're seeing is fairly fixed multi-plug chargers. That is, you have one large charging module which has multiple guns, which can then deliver charging to multiple cars depending on their output. That is essentially you have a larger charger that then can charge multiple cars at the same time. And I think that's what is being deployed across India at the moment. Mobile chargers or temporary chargers are more of a stopgap solution, is what I would think. The more awareness that people get about today, I think the biggest, even at Rapti, what you're trying to do is kind of increase awareness about how charging works, right? People have already started adopting electric vehicles, but awareness about what are the chargers that are available in the market, what are the standards that are available in the market, how compatible is your product to the chargers available in the market is still a question, and not a lot of people still know the answer to that, especially the public, right? Like me being in the industry, I know exactly where to charge my vehicle, but if you ask a layman, I'm pretty sure they don't even know what CCS is. So I think that's more important, and I think once that comes in, to answer your question, I think fixed charges would be probably the best option for us.
Okay, that would be the best option going forward. So, can you tell us about like Tesla's reported plans to hire local engineers for Autopilot and R&D? See, you're a bike startup, EV startup founder yourself. So, how do you view India's tech and engineering talent?
Cool. No, I think that's an amazing question. So, what I personally feel is, I think we are really complementing some of the other countries that are in the market, right? I think there's a lot of talk over how China's already asserted its dominance in EV technology. But if you look globally, I think India still has a very strong role to play in EV software, which is something that I think India still leads the way there. When it comes to two-wheeler tech, I think arguably the most advanced technology for electric two-wheelers, I think, is coming out of India more than any other country. I think there are close to about 20,000 people who are technically working on electric two-wheeler R&D just in India. So I think we have very clear differentiators on where India can, add value, and I think that's what we need to concentrate on rather than trying to be a China plus one, especially on these items.
Got it. So, now that you talked of China, what do you think of, our own manufacturing capabilities? So, because when it comes to battery investments, you're seeing Tata's 1.5 billion gigafactory underway. Do you see real opportunities for two-wheeler startups to benefit from domestic cell sourcing, or do pricing and chemistry still push you towards imports?
Sure. No, I think the larger part, I think, is that the market is now trying to shift towards LFP purely because of costs, and that's where China is obviously able to give amazing pricing benefits. But if you look at really good chemistry cells like NCA and NMC cells, I think there's quite a bit of potential. We see Tata's and obviously Ola and the likes of Amara Raja who are setting up plants on this chemistries, and I think that's definitely going to come up. Is it going to come up in the next 1 year or 2 years? Probably not, but I think we're definitely moving towards domestic sourcing of cells. Yeah.
Well, that sounds very positive. I also wanted to ask you about like the EV chargers. For instance, I saw this report that there are about like 135 EVs per public charger, mostly geared for four wheelers. So, how does this mismatch impact when it comes to two wheeler EV adoption? And are bike startups thinking differently about home, portable, or swappable charging models?
Sure. No, so I mean, I've seen the same article that says 135 vehicles. I think today, I think those numbers are a little bit more closer to about 50 vehicles for chargers. I think when
It's
the year
150 vehicles
started,
per charger. It's
no,
50
no,
vehicles, 50
50 vehicles
EVs
per
per
charger.
charger. Okay.
Right. And more importantly, right, I think what we're doing right in India also is that we're talking about public DC fast chargers, right? What's happening around the world is people are focusing, again, depending on geographies, the type of charger also completely differs, right? Like how the customer really uses chargers. In India, 90% of your charging is going to happen at home or at work, which is going to be a slow chargers. And we don't really, I mean, at least we don't see the use case for slow chargers in public. So what we are seeing today is close to about 50 cars per charger, and these chargers are all DC public DC chargers, right? These are fast chargers that enable you to charge a vehicle in less than 45 minutes time, right? And I think that's what we need to be really focusing on rather than just deploying a large number of chargers. I think we need to focus on deploying the right type of chargers, right? That's point number one. And to answer your question about two wheelers, you're right, absolutely right. Today, there's absolutely no public charging infrastructure for two wheelers, right? And that's one of the reasons where we're trying to build in technology that can use the car charging infrastructure, right? Today, every single electric car today in the market, right from the most affordable to the most expensive electric car that's available in the market, uses a single standard. And the government is doing a phenomenal job, including government and the private sector. I think we started off the year with roughly about 25,000 chargers. We're already past 32,000 chargers in public. And we become the only electric two-wheelers that can leverage these car charging stations. So that's a philosophy that we're taking. But I think there's also new standards evolving for charging stations for two-wheelers as well. But this is the way that we think we want to move.
Right, that's interesting. So, can you also tell us a little more about the kind of public-private charging partnerships or models that could move the needle for two-wheelers in tier two or tier three cities? So, is there any concept of a valet charging or battery swap ecosystem? What would work better for two-wheelers than when it comes to cars?
Sure. No, I think it's very important to kind of understand how people also buy two wheelers in India, right? In India, it's not as utilitarian as it is in many other countries like China or Indonesia. In India, two wheelers are the dominant mode of transportation. India sells more two wheelers every year, more than the number of cars that US sells every year, right? That's the number of two wheelers that India sells, and these sell. One on obviously rational, but more on emotional values, right? Like every automobile that an Indian buys, there's a bit of emotion and sentiment attached to it. So you can't just, I mean, that's also one of the reasons we've seen battery swapping not really take off in the last few years, right? We've seen now battery as a service being laid out by some of the OEMs that's helping reduce the upfront cost of the vehicle. But battery swapping as a use case, what happens is that the customer now feels that he or she doesn't own the battery anymore, and there's always a potential that they will get a bad battery in return for their good battery. And
Okay.
that's also one of the reasons that's preventing battery swapping to come in. But on the other
No,
side,
but
I
it's a
think
good point you made on sentiment. I never even thought that sentiment could play a role in how people purchase things. But go on.
no, exactly right. Whether it's a TVS XL, whether it's a Splendor, whether it's a Royal Enfield, irrespective, that automobile becomes a socio-economic status symbol for any individual that buys an automobile, right? And you always want to upgrade. You move from a TVS 50 to a maybe a Kinetic Honda in those days, and then a Splendor, then to a Royal Enfield, right? So that's how we're used to automobiles. In this case, if you're kind of bringing in a utilitarian mindset where you're just talking about total cost of ownership or environmental friendliness, that's not what's going to make the automobile sell. And that's essentially, I think, is what is very important for you to increase electrification in two-wheelers at least. I think the car industry has gotten it really well. The car industry is focused on the upgrade market where, almost all electric cars are in the mid-premium space. They're not extremely affordable. At the same time, they're not extremely expensive vehicles. And I think that's the approach that two-wheelers also need to take to kind of bring adoption, especially in the motorcycle space.
Right, got it. So India's recent tariff cutoffs for EV makers investing over 500 million are aimed at global giants like Tesla. So what's your take
Right.
as a homegrown startup? What do you feel are the current policy initiatives aligned with the reality of a small, nimble innovator like you yourself are?
Sure. I was talking to somebody earlier today as well. I think technology is a level playing field here, and it cannot be overstated. The reason that I say this is existing companies, incumbents uh, are really not built to build as many electronic components that are required to actually vertically integrate tech that's required in an electric two-wheeler, right? So what current OEMs are still doing are going the tier one route. They're trying to buy components that suit their requirement and then build a product on top of that, right? That's the space that we have. We have startups like us have the agility and also possibly the know-how to kind of build, vertically integrate the tech into our vehicle and deliver that as a wholesome product to the customer, at least in the initial days, and then kind of carry momentum from there. There have been amazing predecessors or rather peers for us in the electric scooter space. We want to kind of replicate the same thing in the electric motorcycle space. But to answer your question on overseas players entering India, I think the Indian demographic is significantly different from what you find in Europe or in the US or even the Far East, right? So there's definitely a lot of scope, and that's essentially what we're doing at Raptee. The reason that we focus on motorcycles and not scooters is that motorcycles have largely been an Indian product. Even if you go globally, you see Indian manufacturers exporting motorcycles to Latin America, Africa, and even to Europe. So, and we believe that motorcycle technology, even for EVs, has to come in from India, and that's what we aspire to pioneer in. So, yeah.
Right, got it. So this may be a bit redundant, but I'm still going to ask you if Tesla enters at like a premium price, because you did talk about the entry of foreign players. So if Tesla enters at a premium price point, does that hurt or help the two-wheeler EV market? And does their presence raise general EV awareness, or does it just pull focus away in terms of subsidies from mass market electric mobility? So where do you think bikes can dominate in India?
Sure. Again, I used to work at Tesla myself. I spent quite a considerable time
Oh,
working.
we got the
Uh,
right person to talk
right.
on Tesla.
Right. Running two production lines at Tesla and their Fremont plant as well as their Tilburg plant in the Netherlands. So they're a phenomenal company, and we've learned so much from them, especially in the way that they innovate. Right. For them, the North Star is essentially pace of innovation and nothing else. Right. And they believe that pace of innovation will essentially take care of your customers' requirements and everything. So I think having a company like Tesla enter the Indian market and set a benchmark, I think is definitely going to really help every other OEM in the market, right? It's obviously going to affect four wheelers as much, more than two wheelers, but I really believe players like Tata and Mahindra have really set their positioning so well that the volumes are really not going to be affected by a player like Tesla, but it's definitely going to help customers understand that even a player like Tesla wants to enter the Indian market. So India is ready for electrification, mass electrification, and that's going to really help create that awareness and improve penetration. And I think that's the same way that it's going to affect the two-wheeler industry as well, right? Unfortunately, we've had some bad apples in the past where we've had issues with electric two-wheelers where customers had a difficulty in adopting the right one and faced a lot of difficulties with issues in some products in the past. A company like Tesla entering the Indian market is a clear signal that India is ready for EVs. Even though we from the industry believe it, this kind of helps the customers also, understand that better. So definitely going to help us. Rachel, I'm sorry, I think you're on mute.
Apologies. No, I was just saying what we've heard from you so sounds great and very positive so far for the Indian two-wheeler market EV. And so, any closing thoughts?
No, I think it's phenomenal what's happening in the EV space across the board, right from international players to Indian players like Mahindra and Tata bringing out brilliant automobiles. Everybody who I'm speaking to today, even if they're not considering purchasing an EV now, it's very clear that everybody understands that it's just an eventuality and the future is obviously electric, right? And I don't think this was the signal even about a year and a half ago. And I think that's very, very encouraging. There are some certain segments that have not been filled in yet. For example, where we're trying to compete in, which is the electric motorcycle space, which is still completely left out, where cars are roughly at about 5% penetration, scooters are at 16% penetration, motorcycles are at less than 0.1% penetration. So I think it's very important for you to give customers options in each of these categories. So penetration obviously accelerates in every category and not just in niche segments. So yeah, I think Rappi is kind of trying to fill in that space, and we've already started delivery. So we're really excited to see how the market takes us.
Right. Thank you so much, Dinesh. This was fantastic, and hopefully, public charging infrastructure goes up so that if we want to take one of Rapti's motorbikes on the road, then even a mountain trip is possible. So, thank you today for joining us.
Really appreciate it, Lisa. Have a great day.
Sure.